Amazing but expensive, or cheap but compromised? This was the choice you used to have to make when buying lenses. Can a $2,000 lens really compete with a $6,000 lens? Over the past decade, disruptive manufacturers have entered the industry and redefined what value truly means. These are DZO's Arles Primes, and if they live up to their reputation, they're supposedly the quality and look of something like a Vista Prime, but at a fraction of the cost. So we're going to do what we do, and we're going to be taking them to the mountains. In this video, we're going to provide you with an objective evaluation. There's going to be travel, beautiful scenery, comparisons, and even resolve tips. So even if you're not looking to purchase, hang around, this should be fun. We're on another through hike. Space and weight is limited, but we've managed to pack a red V-Raptor X and two Arles lenses, the 25 and 50. We're powering the camera with two Swip Minnow V-mounts. Lens information will be on screen. All 5 lenses in the A set, which you'll see later, open up to T1.4. Most of the time though, we tend to shoot somewhere around T2, or when there's no depth in the scene, we'll stop down to around T4 or T5.6. Exposure is maintained using the camera's internal electronic ND. The shots and editing will be paced slowly. This is about the lenses, this isn't about editing. In case you haven't noticed, this video is mastered in HDR. If you're not watching on a compatible device, you'll see an SDR trim. Let us know if you like the HDR. We might be doing more of this going forward. The footage is of course graded. Cameras are data gathering tools that are designed to leave the creativity to you. Similarly with lenses, especially ones as clean as these, the image they provide is a starting point for your work to begin. So we feel it's appropriate to present these images as they'd be seen, graded. Here's a little info on the grading process. We're using Resolve Color Management, which has correctly identified these red clips thanks to their metadata. As usual, we're using Davinci Wide Gamut Intermediate as our timeline color space. Remember, color management is a technical process. It's not changing the look of our image, just creating a pipeline where the image's integrity is preserved. We're outputting to the P3 color space using the ST2084 1000 nits transfer function. Another popular color space for HDR is Rec 2020, but there are no commercially available monitors capable of displaying that entire color space. As a result, most people grading Rec 2020 gamut limit their final grade to P3 anyway, so that it can be reliably monitored. Our process is relatively simple. We'll use this shot as an example. We'll balance the image with the primary color wheels. At this point, we're looking to produce a balanced SDR grade where the image's highlights are hovering around 100 nits, the limit of SDR. So I'll reduce gain and add contrast as necessary to make each image consistent. This process will differ for each image. Now we can move on to secondary adjustments, again to taste, but I want a cooler looking image. I tend to prefer more vibrant greens than warm greens. Let's use Pixel Tool's Hue Shift DCTL for this adjustment by adding the DCTL effect to this node and selecting the correct DCTL from the dropdown. Before we adjust the greens in this image, let's check the vector preview. This shows me what parts of the image will be affected by the green tools. The foliage is so warm that a lot of it is outside of the green vector. That's not a problem because I can adjust the vector using this control. Now that I like where it is, I'll adjust the hue, saturation, and density of the greens in the image. The reason I'm using this tool is because it uses subtractive saturation. If you missed our masterclass all about that, please go check it out. There's a link in the description. I'm going to apply a consistent look to all of the images in this sequence using a custom curve. First, ungang the YRGB curves so they can be adjusted separately. I will increase blue and decrease red in the shadows. This will give the shadows a cooler look. An additional control point for the blue will help to prevent the darkest shadows from receiving an overly strong color cast. Next, increase red in the highlights. It's not relevant in this image, but when there's skin present, it gives a subtle warm boost. Finally, some luma-only control points will deliver additional contrast. You might consider what we've done with the curves to be a subtle film look. Because we want to apply this look across several clips, we'll save it as a shared node. Using this method instead of a post clip or timeline grade allows us to choose which images this look is applied to, but it also allows us to apply additional node-specific grades after the look. Alternatively, Resolve's post-group node stack layer is another excellent tool for doing that. Finally, here's a node to build the HDR elements of this color grade. There's a misconception that HDR is simply a brighter image. High dynamic range is all about having a greater amount of dynamic range in an image. So if everything was bright, well, that doesn't increase the amount of dynamic range. Therefore, a great deal of an HDR image will live under 100 nits in the same dynamic range occupied by an SDR image. The striking difference between the darker and brighter tones is one of the things that makes an HDR image so impactful. Therefore, a great deal of an HDR image will live under 100 nits in the same dynamic range occupied by an SDR image. The striking difference between the darker and brighter tones is one of the things that makes an HDR image so impactful. This image already has great shadows. I'm going to use the HDR tools to isolate and push the bright sunlight. Clicking through the highlight buttons on the different tonal ranges helps to find the closest tool. Highlight looks perfect. If its tonal range isn't quite right, it can be adjusted with this control here. Increase the exposure until it's closer to 1000 nits. Now, hypersaturated highlights can look unrealistic, so it's common to decrease the saturation as well in bright parts of the image. That's it, rinse and repeat for each shot. There's no sharpening in this grade. We're also avoiding looks that degrade the image's fidelity, like vignetting, grain, or halation, because we want you to be able to appreciate the lenses in their full glory. To give some context, the Arles are meant to be lenses without compromise. Exquisite optics, superlative performance. Those are DZO's words, not mine. Some lenses give your image a distinct look. For example, anamorphics are known for their signature distortion and bokeh. Vintage sphericals are known for their softness or lack of contrast. The Arles are designed to be as neutral as possible. It says so on their site, presenting a natural, neutral visual style for video production. Their optics are designed to deliver high resolution, high contrast, minimal distortion, minimal breathing, neutral colors, and minimal flares. Yet at the same time, according to the site, they also claim to have cinematic depth with painterly rendering. Some of that comes from the lens's 16-bladed aperture that opens all the way to t1.4. The fast aperture allows the cinematographer to create shallow depth of field, which ironically adds that cinematic depth to your image. The high blade count improves the look of the image's bokeh. There are, of course, other design considerations that affect the image these lenses produce. Overall, these lenses are clean, but not clinical. Now, as mentioned, Tokina Vista Primes, RE Master Primes, Zeiss Supremes, and other similar lenses all fall into the same category. I'll put their prices on screen. If the Arles live up to their promise, can you see why they are so exciting? Well, to see whether they do, we've got some Vista Primes so we can make some direct comparisons. Just before we start though, can we show you how we find music for our videos? Most library music websites feature filters that allow you to search by mood, genre, and instrumentation. Even then, it's still hard and time-consuming to find the right music for your edit. Audiio has just launched a brand new AI assistant called Hans that helps you to find music for your videos. Simply describe the kind of video you need to score, and Audio's Hans AI will suggest 6 tracks that might fit. Adding more details to the prompt, like defining the genre, will help Hans to bring back more specific suggestions. We love it when AI is used to enhance your creativity rather than replace it. Audiio has a ton of other features you'll love, like stems, so you can more easily remix its music, but we think your favorite feature will be the incredible price. Using our discount code, you can get an entire year of Audiio for just $60. A big thank you to Audiio for supporting our videos. We're going to start incorporating other footage we've gathered on the Arles. You'll see 5 different cameras. We love to include as much footage as possible so you can make decisions about the lenses for yourself. Please leave your thoughts in the comments down below. When examining characteristics, we like to start with practical real-world examples before moving on to lab tests. It helps ground conversations and stops us from getting carried away with academic discussions that have very little impact on the emotional stories that we try to tell using this equipment. Yes, filmmaking is a technical process, but don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough. It's time to pixel peep. Now, I thought this shot would be an awesome test of sharpness. Disappointingly, it looks like I focused short, but it looks like the steps are in focus. So the good news is that corner sharpness wide open is excellent. The next shot is in focus. I'll zoom in to 200%. That gives me 1:1 pixels on a UHD timeline, give or take. Looks good. Let's jump in again to 400% and the image still looks great. Here the lens is opened to t1.4. There's such a thin slice of the image in focus, but when we push in, look at how crisp that part of the image is. Starting with the 35mm, here's a test chart at t1.4, t2, t4, and t5.6. This provides a more objective evaluation of the lens's sharpness and will give you an idea of how the lens cleans up as you stop it down. Here's the same test again with the 50mm and with the 75mm. Low light performance is more to do with a camera's performance than it is with the lens. A t1.4 lens still can't shoot in low light if you've only got 100 ISO. The better question is whether or not the lens maintains its quality when wide open in a dark environment. Now, I wouldn't describe the V-Raptor as a low light monster. This is the darkest thing we shot. It's at 800 ISO. Center sharpness is excellent. There is some coma on the stars in the corners, but show me a lens that doesn't have coma on point sources in the corners. This is the Sony Burano at 800 ISO. Here's the important thing. When wide open, the lens is still sharp, and we're not seeing flaring or a loss of contrast from the light sources that are in frame. I can confidently say that when combined with a camera that has clean shadows, these lenses are excellent in low light. While we're talking about contrast and flare resistance, I definitely didn't hike with a matte box, and I definitely wasn't precious about which direction I pointed the camera. Despite all that, it's very hard to find significant flare or internal reflections in the footage. Here's a rare example. This shot is pointed towards the sun, it's out of frame directly above. It's producing some subtle flare which is affecting contrast. It's easier to spot when something dark passes in front like this person. Overall, the lens performs well despite the challenging scenario. The image is not overwhelmed with flare. Let's point it directly at the sun. The reason I'm doing it with trees in the background is that the flares are so subtle they're hard to see against light colors. There's still excellent contrast in the image. Pointing a torch at the camera with a plain backdrop gives you a neutral canvas against which to assess the flare. Distortion is usually easy to spot when panning or tilting. Well, there's nothing that jumps out on this slow pan on the 50mm. There is light barrel distortion in the wider focal lengths, which cleans up with longer focal lengths, but it's not typically strong enough to see in normal footage. Breathing is incredibly well corrected. Check out this focus rack. I'll play it again, but enlarge the corners so you can see how little the field of view changes. This shot also gives us a really good opportunity to see how the lenses handle out of focus bokeh. It's a little bit busy. I think this lens exhibits what you'd call Nissen bokeh, where hard lines form around the edges. It's fairly light. It's more noticeable in some shots than in others. For example, in this shot, the effect is far less pronounced. Lens warmth or coolness is really subjective, as it's something that can be very easily corrected with white balance or in post. So it's not something that really bothers us, but we'll talk more about that when we compare these lenses to the Vista Primes. Color rendition is great. That's thanks in part to the lens's flare resistance that stops colors from washing out and keeps them well defined and saturated. As mentioned, we're less concerned about what the image looks like without adjustments, but more concerned about what can be extracted from the image in post. The quality of your image is a definite partnership between the camera, lens, and lighting. A lens isn't going to magically make your images better. So the best thing that you can hope for from a lens is that it can equal the quality of your lighting, camera, and grading. Well, we've not seen anything to indicate that the Arles would be a weak link in that chain. To bring some balance to this conversation, with each of these categories, there's a case to be made that less resolution, less contrast, more flare, and buckets of distortion are desirable characteristics in a lens. We own lenses that definitely fit that bill. In our opinion, the Arles live up to their claims. They are very clean, but when opened wide, they have a beautiful focus fall-off and subtle imperfections that lend the image character. As is normal for a lens set, the wider lenses exhibit more imperfections at their edges. The longer focal lengths have more consistent quality across the entire field of view. These sorts of imperfections, though, are so common that they're basically a part of cinematic vernacular. And actually, when creating games or visual effects, emulating those features helps make images look more realistic. It's time to put them head to head with the Vista Primes. We've shot this test scene with both the Vistas and Arles. We don't have the exact same focal lengths, but they're close enough. This footage is shot on the Blackmagic Ursa Cine 12K. Here's the 29 and 35 wide open at T2 and T4. The 40 and 50 wide open at T2 and at T4. And the 85 and 75 wide open at T2 and T4. The Vista Primes are slightly warmer than the Arles, or you could say the Arles are slightly cooler. Potato, patata. The Vista Primes are definitely better lenses. They have better sharpness and consistency when wide open, better controlled chromatic aberration around the edges of the frame, less distortion, and smoother out of focus bokeh. But across the board, they are only fractionally better than the Arles, and those improvements come at the cost of size, weight, and money. The Vista Primes cost 3 times more than the Arles, but it's debatable whether they are 3 times the quality. As you've seen, none of that stopped me from capturing awesome images with the Arles. While the Arles gets slightly softer when wide open, I was never aware of that while shooting or editing. So, whereas the direct comparisons of the test charts might reveal those differences, a side-by-side shot out in the field, in this case a literal field, is more difficult to tell apart. It's undeniable that the quality these lenses deliver at the price they cost is absolutely fantastic. Size and weight is relative, so here's some quick comparisons. These Atlas Mercuries are about 1 kilogram each. The Arles are about 1.6 kilograms each. The Vista Primes are around 2.4 kilograms each. So depending on where you're coming from, they might seem big and heavy, or they might seem small and light. Did I enjoy hiking with 3.5 kilograms of lenses? No, not really, but I did it. And at the end of the day, memories fade, but pictures don't, so it's still a win. We'd say their size and weight means they are better suited to more structured shoots. The build quality is exceptional. Focus throw is 270 degrees. They've got a 95mm outside diameter, that's for clamping on matte boxes. They can also accept 86mm screw-on filters. If you buy the set, they come in a case. There's mounting posts if you want to use a lens support. We took them off though, as we never felt it was required when using a PL mount. Additional shims are also included. These lenses are designed around the PL mount. Some lenses are designed for other formats and then adapted to PL. We're saying that to point out the fact that their rear elements sit flush with the mount, where they should be on a PL lens. That means they clear mirrors on this Reflex 35 and a clear ACL. Modern digital cameras don't have reflex mirrors, but that extra space between the lens and sensor is still helpful. It means you can fit mount adapters to use these lenses on mounts with short flange depths, or you can use that space to fit an ND filter. The Arles have an advertised image circle of 46.5mm. That's enough to clear VistaVision, Depending on what lens you use, it is possible to work with larger formats, but you may get corner vignetting. These are incredible lenses. They would be a fantastic purchase at $20,000 for a set, but that's not what they cost. You can purchase a set of 5 for less than $10,000. At that price, they are an absolute steal. They're not perfect, no lens is, but those imperfections are forgivable given the price. And for many, those imperfections might be considered desirable characteristics. If you want a set of lenses that will meet any challenge you throw at them, the Arles might be the right fit for you. A big thank you to ProAV for making this video possible. If you want to check out these lenses for yourself, go visit their showroom and tell them that we sent you. Thanks also to Audiio, who does so much to support our channel. Go get yourself an entire year of music for just $60. If you have questions, please leave them down in the comments. If you liked the video, give it a like. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos, and thank you for watching.